Several minutes later, I took a breather. Rivets was just pissed. She always bumped heads with any pony in security, always sure no pony knew as well as she did how to run the stable. As soon as the overmare calmed down, everything would settle down, and we'd be able to get back to normal. Don't think about it. It was how every pony in the stable survived. I'd just forget about it, and in a week, Rivets and I would be laughing as usual. Please let everything be all right. Well, with the game a complete fiasco, Midnight continuing her cold shoulder, and me with 6 hours left of my shift, I might as well actually do some security work. Mostly, the 10 or so of us on C shift patrolled and rode up any mare violating curfew. Down here, I might find more interesting violations, but it was rare that I'd ever run into anything major. I snapped on another function of my pit buck, the eyes forward sparkle. Instantly, a number of yellow bars filled my vision as the arcane device detected the number of ponies within a few hundred feet. It also had a few red bars, likely a few hungry radroaches looking to take a bite out of me. The EFS was a function few ponies used regularly. After all, it only gave direction and hostility, and the indicator didn't even tell you how far above or below the bar was. For all I knew, that yellow bar was around the corner or a floor up. I entered in the P-21's pitbuck address, but the little icon twitched around spasmodically. Likely he was down here. Somewhere. It wasn't often that we had a buck who tried to hide from retirement. Most just reported to security or medical to get their shot, and that was that. Occasionally there'd be a crying or screaming fit in the atrium. Rarely they'd suicide. Ugh. Please don't let me find him hanging or poisoned down here. The plain fact was that this was a stable. The only exit had been sealed 4 generations ago during the last incident. And eventually, he'd starve to death. It wasn't like bucks knew how to get into the food stores and the like. They just bred. That was all they knew, all they needed to know. Right? I trotted past a row of gurgling pieces of equipment barely lit by wan yellow spark lamps. Knowing my luck, the yellow bar ahead of me was actually 1 or 2 floors above me. If I was lucky, I could get through this shift without any more disasters and, if I was really lucky, talk to Mom and not the head security mayor about the rising tension. The former might be able to do something. The latter would have to crack down on rivets, or, worse, tell the overmare. Then I heard a faint sniff and soft sobs over the hum of the equipment. Looked like I'd found my pony. Okay, come on out and let's get you up to security. A quick shot and it'll all be over. The sniffling stopped, and then a tiny olive filly with teal eyes peeked out at me. My jaw dropped as I saw the pain and fear in her eyes. Oh, you're not. Ahem. I sat hard and rubbed my head. Could this night get any worse? You're not supposed to be down here. It's dangerous, and after curfew. Where's your mama? She just stared at me, and her eyes dropped to her hooves. Recycled, was all she blubbered. She touched her pit buck, and her ID flashed. Scotch tape. Maintenance Shift C. Oh, I tried to think up some creative profanity, but, I got nothing. Oh, well, what was I supposed to do? If this was Duct Tape's kid, then she was supposed to be here. Should I say something about her mom? Give her a hug? Tell her she's doing a good job? Tell her not to be a cry-filly? Sorry about your mom. Don't worry. I'm sure you'll get the hang of it. I grinned at her as she clenched her eyes closed, pulled a wrench from her barding, and nodded before trotting back between the massive round machines. I trotted away as quickly as I could. Wonderful, Blackjack. You'll get the hang of it? What is wrong with me? I berated myself as I glanced back over my shoulder. I wasn't good at this whole life and death thing. Really. You just didn't think about death in 99. It wasn't really like death so much as one day you're there and the next day you're replaced by your kid, and someday they'll be replaced by theirs. I was glad that Mom would probably last forever. I didn't know how to handle the stable with her gone. I couldn't help but reach out and touch the steel walls of the stable. Somebody had daubed "Fuck the Overmare" on the gray metal in flaking white paint. A shout of rebellion from the incident almost a century ago the last time the stable had torn itself apart. Back then, it had been Bucks challenging the Overmare and the rules imposed by stable tech when the stable had been established. Today, it was Rivets against the Overmare. Why'd I have to get stuck in the middle of this shit? And, just as I was getting a nice batch of self-pity whipped up, I stepped right in a puddle of sewage. My hooves slipped on the slippery mung as I went over, getting a face full of cold sludge. Coughing and retching, I kicked away, wiping my face furiously. My red and black striped mane were smeared with grunge as I leaned against the wall, coughing and spitting. How nice that the goddesses were making my metaphoric life literal. I tried to think about what I knew of the newest P-21. He was green. No, brown? Ugh! I paid more attention to the unicorn breeding population than the Earth ponies. I'd heard that this P-21 was already notorious for disappearing, though, so it wasn't much a surprise they'd pulled another vanishing act. No pony was sure how he managed to get out of medical. Males weren't supposed to be smart enough for that. Wait, what was that? It was another yellow bar, but one that, when I moved my head, changed direction faster than any of the others. That meant that it was a lot closer, as in right on the far side of a door marked Emergency Storage Number 3. I frowned, tried the handle with my horn, and I was astonished to find it unlocked. Not even rivets left these unsecured. Slowly, I levitated out my baton, opened the door, and flipped on the lights. Row after row of metal boxes lay on dusty shelves for the day another incident occurred. Of course, there weren't any weapons or ammo, but clearly some of these boxes had been opened. I toggled the lamp on my pip-buck, flooding the far depths of the chamber with light. There in the corner hid a blue earth pony mare in ugly gray utility barding. I immediately relaxed as she watched me with worried blue eyes. "Sweet Celestia, what are you doing in here? I thought Rivets kept this place locked up tight." She looked at me with wary eyes. "Just getting some stuff for Rivets." Her soft voice was surprisingly deep for such a puny pony. "I'll just get it to her," she said, slipping on her saddlebags and starting slowly towards the exit. But as she drew close to me, I frowned. I knew all the mares on C shift, and the only blue earth pony was a medical mare. "What shift are you on?" I asked with a little frown. C shift, of course." She swallowed as she turned, facing me and backing away. "Right," I said as I frowned at her, slipping into full security mode. I might not have found the missing male, but hopefully this would redeem me a little in my mom's eyes. Still, why any pony would want to steal centuries-old medical supplies was beyond me. "Identification, please." She gave it by turning to bolt for the door. Now, I might not be very good at magic, but I definitely knew how to swing a baton and tackle a fleeing thief. She made it a half-dozen steps out the door before my glowing stick swept her legs right out from under her. As she went down, I jumped on her back and was amazed when she went completely still. "Okay, identification!" She didn't move. I didn't respond in the slightest. She just lay there, shaking and crying slightly. I frowned and reached over to use my security override. "P-21, breeder, retire from service immediately," flashed on the screen of his, pip-buck. "You're the new P-21, I muttered, staring down at his saddlebags and clothing. Keeping him pinned on my hooves, I stripped him of his stolen goods. Sure enough, those were parts that didn't belong on any mare. What the hay is going on here?" He didn't move. He simply lay there with his eyes closed, curled up. Saddlebags full of food, a utility mare's outfit. Had he planned to actually live down here? Like all bucks, his cutie mark was a white male symbol with dots underneath it. His had 2 rows of 10 white dots. Below that would go one more dot, though I was never sure why, since after that he'd be heading straight to retirement. Well, time for the next bit. Ahem. According to Overmare and Stable Tech bylaws, you are to be escorted to security for final processing and chemical retirement. You are obliged by stable bylaws to accompany me, or you will be compelled. Do you understand? Goddesses, I hated playing the security mare part. He knew the rules. I knew he knew. He knew, I knew, he knew. Why did I have to pretend? Meanwhile, he just lay there like a blue doll, his eyes wide and glassy. Just kill me. It's what you do, isn't it? I blinked at him in confusion. It's not my place to kill you. I'm not an executioner. You're going to be, retired. I tried to grin and put him at ease, because Bucks sometimes did stupid things. It wouldn't be the first time one attacked me without provocation. He looked back and his eyes slowly drew into focus. I'd never seen a male look at me like this before. The cold anger inside made me wonder if he was really going to do something crazy. Like you retired him? He replied softly, his storm blue eyes darkening as he stared at me. Uh, I think you're confused. Medical takes care of the actual retirement process, I said as I backed away. You're all murderers, he muttered as he rose to his hooves and looked back at the stolen clothes and supplies. I was so close, too. With that, he started to walk slowly towards the stable's central staircase. Close to what? I asked, but he didn't answer. I couldn't blame him. If I were about to be retired, I doubted that I'd be in a chatty mood. Still, it was hard to take him calling me a murderer. I'd never killed any pony. I followed him closely, baton ready, in case he came back at me. We trotted past an open doorway to a storeroom, and the olive filly peeked out with a sad eye as we walked by. I wish that was all that happened. Just as we reached the stairs to the higher levels of the stable, a baton wielded by a pale yellow mare whirled out from a side hall and struck his rear knee, with a sickening, tearing pop that signaled a damaged joint. He fell to his side, screaming in pain as Daisy and Marmalade stepped out. The huge, pale mare spat out her baton, caught the strap on the end of her hoof, and twirled it. About time we found the missing penis. She slammed her hoof into his face as he tried to curl up into a tight ball. And he's with you? Daisy added with a grim grin. Bonus. Daisy, Marmalade, what the fuck are you doing? I asked as Marmalade's floating baton thumped hard against his ribs and Daisy smashed him with her hooves again. Saving Medical some work. This little fuck's had us down here for hours, she said as she grinned at Marmalade. So I figured we'd take care of him ourselves. What the fuck? You can't fucking do this. Medical retires ponies, not security. Was I actually quoting stable bylaws now? The worst security pony in the stable. What the hell was happening here? Oh, he's fighting us, Daisy said as she circled him and brought her hoof down on his swelling knee. Resisting security. A real dangerous case. Right, Marmalade? The honey-colored mare nodded with a dumb grin.